Blog Talk Radio.
It's the V-Spot. I'm your host, Dr. Dictator. My co-host is Bill Foster. V-Spot Radio is brought to you by Planet Dictator Blog Network. Get everything you need and a few things you truly do not want. Only at Planet Dictator. All right, we're on there. We got a big guest, the biggest guest that we've had so far, Michael Smith, who played DJ Connor on Roseanne. And me and Neil are both really excited for this. It happened just because I try to get people on the show, and I made a cold call, and Michael's a solid dude, and he agreed to do it. How you doing, Michael?
I'm good. I'm excited.
All right, man. I'm trying to start because I figure every interview you get asks how you first got on the show.
We can start there if you'd like.
No, it's fine. I am curious though. How did you get started? Were you already acting before you did Roseanne, or was that like your first audition?
You know, I had just started auditioning. My sister wanted to earn money for college. She's one of those forward thinkers, and at the time I was 5 and she was 7, and she's one of those people who plans her life 20 years out and always has kind of an eye on the future. And I went on a few auditions, and it was 1988, and there was a writer's strike, so there was literally no work. And our parents only wanted us to do commercials, so they did not want us to do anything long-term. And the audition came up for Roseanne, and my parents adamantly did not want me to go. The agent said, well, they want somebody with experience, and your son has done absolutely nothing, so there's no way he'll get it. Would you just go? And 9 years later, it turned into a long-term project that nobody had anticipated.
Yeah, that's usually the way it goes. You know, you basically kind of, I've been trying to figure this out myself, how to jinx life into giving me things.
Yep.
I always
call it I got struck with. Yeah, I always call it like I got struck by lightning.
Do you remember the first time you met Roseanne?
Oh, absolutely. I met her the second audition. There were 6 auditions spanning over 6 months. They saw something like 10,000 kids. The last 3 auditions, there was only 3 kids. It was down to a kid who had done a bunch of stuff from New York and a kid who had done a bunch of stuff from Chicago. And the second audition, we went in, and she was inside, and she said, tell me a joke. And I told her a joke, and what I learned later was from that point on, she pushed for me. And I'm kind of one of the first battles she won. So I think, in hindsight, if they had known what they were doing when they gave in to her, I don't know that they would have.
Do you remember what the joke was? Do you?
What was that?
He asked if you remembered what the joke was.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And at the time, as far as we knew, I had made it up. My sister and my cousins and I used to make up jokes, and it was, why did the turtle cross the road? And the punchline was Chicken's Day Off. And for a 5-year-old, that was pretty good. And the funny part was that I guess she had asked all the kids that came in, and they were all professionals, and every kid said to her, oh, I'm not prepared for that. I didn't know I needed a joke. And I was the only one who stepped up and just told a joke, and she said I had good timing.
Do you remember why they did the pilot with the first kid?
I know that they did the pilot. When I came aboard, again, my parents thought that this was for a pilot, and so they were very shocked when I ended up getting the part, and we did everything wrong you could do wrong and still ended up getting it. And we found out that they had shot the pilot with another little boy, and they had already sold the show for 13 episodes. And we never really got into why. It's one of those things, I didn't care why, because at that point, I wasn't the reason that he was removed, and at that point, it was my job, and there was no reason to look back.
Yeah. Watching the episodes, you were really natural for a little kid. Knowing you didn't have any experience, you came across, I think you came across as a genuine little kid and not a kid actor.
that was the thing that Roseanne really said, that I had good timing and that I was a kid. I wasn't a trained professional. She said, everybody else smelled like acting.
Actually, I know that happens with some child actors. You can actually tell which ones actually seem like an actual child, not just a child actor. Like even with Dustin Diamond, you can kind of see it's like, yeah, there's someone playing that part. With you or like I forgot his name, from like the Wonder Years, Fred Savage, he would think, oh yeah, that's definitely him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Fred's a good guy.
Okay, you met him.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of really good experience with him, and as we got older, he had a show on our lot after the Wonder Years. We used to play basketball together.
Huh. Okay. Do you remember when you first met John Goodman?
I do. The first day I met John was the first day that I actually started, and we were supposed to do a table read, and John was a mountain of a man, especially when you're a little kid. And he was real quiet. He's kind of a reserved, quiet guy unless you really know him, and he's kind of shy, and then he gets on stage and he can do anything and make everybody laugh. So I just remember he was a mountain of a man, and he didn't have any kids, and we didn't really know how to address each other, so our relationship really grew as the show went on.
I noticed watching the first season that they both had really good interactions. Like, you would believe that you were their kid.
I was really lucky. Going to work every day was like the greatest. It was just perfect. I had people who really accepted me and took an interest in me, both on camera and off. And so I think I endeared myself to them through all the little goofy things I did, and they were very open and accepting of me.
Yeah, I want to mention this right now before I forget but I love John Goodman. Like, he's like a first draft pick Hall of Famer for the Victator Hall of Fame.
Oh, I love him. I think he may be one of the most underrated actors around. Him and Laurie Metcalf, I would tell you, are two of the most underrated people in this business. If that's possible, as much as John has done, as good as he's been, and as much as people know, he's even better.
How did you get along initially with Sarah Gilbert and Lacey Garrison? Is that their name?
Goranson. Lacey Goranson.
Okay, that's it. Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem. The two of them were the same age. Lacey was a little bit older, but they were basically the same age, so they were really tight. And when I first started there, a little boy, girls who are 5, 6 years older, they're into totally different things. But Lacey and Sarah and I kind of always just really connected well. Sarah Gilbert and I had a pretty special relationship. She would put up with me following her around. She had all the cool friends. She was wearing Doc Martens and wearing leather jackets before they were cool, and all of her little pack of friends that everybody made fun of as these little trendy kids. Every one of them turned into a major star, which is so ironic now.
One thing I noticed is I was going through an episode guide earlier just to kind of get a refresher on it. I noticed they didn't really give you a centric episode till season 3.
Yeah, I think part of that was, you had the older girls, so it was easier to use the older characters. I think it's really hard as a writer to write for a young child. I was pretty young early on, and I think the show initially was more geared towards the two parents, and it became more complete family as Roseanne had a bigger say in it.
Right. One episode I liked from early on, and, now that I have little kids myself, well, they're not mine, but they might as well be. There was this episode when Darlene was trying to build a castle, and DJ crushed it by accident.
Yes.
And I remember that because that seemed like such a genuine thing, because I've watched my little nephew and his brother, and I've seen that exact same thing play out. It's not a castle, it might be a video game.
Yeah, we had some of the best writers, and a lot of them had kids, and they really brought, I think, authentic things to the show that I don't think I've really seen in a lot of other shows. I mean, really genuine interactions between siblings and family members.
You know, one thing I always liked on the show was the kids were not needlessly smartasses. Like, they weren't always at each other's throats with the parents like on a lot of sitcoms.
Yeah.
You know, and the people don't recruit a lot because, you know, nobody actually hates their parents. Like, you see your mom in the morning, you always say, go to hell or make some smart-ass remark. You just say, good morning.
Right. It was all geared towards a real event, if that makes any sense. Like, I agree with you because, you know, Darlene was such a sassy character, and Lacey could be a smart-ass at times, but, you know, it was always geared towards something that was going on, or there was an event. But at the heart of it, like a real family, it wasn't something that was a character that, you know, we overdid every moment of every episode.
One thing I noticed...
There was an episode that was kind of like that when we rewatched it. This is an episode I really vividly remember as a kid, but I watched the New Eyes. It was the episode when it was your birthday and you got the Super Nintendo. Now, when I was a kid, I just saw it on the aspect that, you know, you were so happy just to play that you were basically scoffing the whole, you know, birthday and everything just to play, kind of like what I did.
Right.
But I saw the new episode, the fact that, you know, yeah, your parents were basically saving up to get the Super Nintendo. Then, you know, the grandmother just kind of swoops in and gets it anyway. Just kind of undermines their authority without asking.
And I think anybody with kids, I have kids, and I think that stuff happens to you. You know, you save up, or you tell your kid they have to wait for something, or, you know, you decide, okay, I'm ready, I'm going to buy the great gift this year, and then somebody else shows up with it, or, you know, and then you're kind of left standing there going, what just happened here?
Yeah, it's one of those things, you know, whenever I buy one of my nephews a gift, I always run it by their parents, so I'm going to get it. You know, we always run each other's playbook before the holidays.
See, that's smart. You know, I have not been so lucky. I've had supportive family members jump over my gifts a few times, and, you know, you just go, no, wait a minute, you don't understand.
It's kind of an odd position because on one hand, somebody bought your kid a nice gift, but on the other hand, you feel like your glory was stolen a little bit. Then you feel bad then you feel bad for it.
Yeah, it's a weird moment. I think for me, I always try to keep in mind. Obviously, my kid has mentioned that they really wanted this, so, you know, everybody thought they were doing the best thing possible, and so usually I just end up getting something else. But, you know, it is that glory moment where you're like, yeah, somebody hit a home run right here. And you're like, oh, somebody else hit the home run. I'll stay in the on-deck circle.
Okay, going back to season 3, I think the first episode you were given a B plot was the one when Dan loaned Arnie that money, and you were peeping on Becky.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the beginning of DJ doing things that definitely got a lot of attention.
I was trying to remember, because now I'm trying to remember which episode it was where where Becky and Darlene were cleaning DJ's room and they found a shoebox full of Barbie heads and legs.
You know what? That was kind of a running gag. It started out in one episode and kind of bled into a second one, and I was so happy Roseanne kind of turned to the writers and said, okay, let's not go too far with this, because I started getting, to this day, I still get random doll parts in the mail. I no joke.
I always liked Roseanne. I always liked the response when the girls come to them and they're like saying, you know, DJ's a boy. He doesn't do things like you. Then they show him the box. They're like, and they tell Dan, he's like, oh, he's not playing with dolls, is he? Then he's relieved when he sees it's just severed parts.
Yes. You know, I really think that we had some of the best writers. I mean, and a lot of those people have gone on to do so many other great shows. We had such a good group, and they were so willing to be honest, and I think the honesty is the thing that people remember.
Dude, do you remember interacting with Joss Whedon much?
You know what, he wasn't there very long. He was there in the beginning, and we had a lot of really strong writers in the beginning who really branched out pretty early. So I didn't have I remember him. He probably doesn't remember anything about me other than that I was that young kid. I'd love to work with him.
Yeah, but you ought to you ought to try to snag apart in Avengers 2.
Oh man, from your mouth to everybody here.
Now, when you said about the writers doing things more real or pushing things, I can't remember, were there any controversies with some of these earlier episodes?
There were a lot of controversies, especially with, like, one of the first episodes that was really a big deal was the episode where the girls get their period. And that was a really massive fight. And, the things you couldn't say, we had to censor there, and, you can't say time of the month. You can't say Aunt Flo. You can't say period. You can't say, menstrual cycle. You can't say, and you're like, well, what are we going to say? And finally,
well,
Roseanne
I remember that
said,
happened with the I Love Lucy, where they couldn't even use the word pregnant when they were having the baby episodes. Now, was that around the same time as the Married with Children period episode?
I actually think it was.
It was a similar time. We were first, and she had to fight tooth and nail for that, and they actually said that they weren't going to air the episode after we did it. And it turned out to be pretty successful.
And, well, the funny thing was, and I mean, not to steer it away for anything, it's like, because me and Neil just love Married with Children, too. But anyway, they had the episode, and the weird thing about the Fox censors were, they fought to finally get the episode through, but the thing they objected to was calling this episode a period piece.
Right.
And that was the thing they objected to. Yeah, and they didn't understand why, because nobody's going to see the title, because this is before DVRs and everything.
Right. I know. I'm telling you, some of the things that you see people fight over, especially, in the late 80s, early 90s, the things that we fought over compared to things that people say now just routinely every night at 8 o'clock. I mean, I remember all the words that we got to add to our repertoire when we moved from, 8 to 8:30. That was a huge deal. It's like, we can be a little riskier now.
Do you think some of that was the censors trying to do a power struggle?
I think, there's some elements of that, but I think the censors, for the most part, we had a great censor. His name was Neil, and he worked there all those years. I think they just have a list, and they just have a certain amount of things that, they know that their group gives them that they know they're going to be uncomfortable with, and they just try to kind of toe that line as hard as they can. And on some level, I think they give in to certain things knowing that they're going to give up something, but there's certain things they just can't budge on.
This is going a little bit later in the show, but later on they did a couple episodes with DJ, like where he was getting erections in school.
Yes.
And then they did the episode where he was masturbating. And was that difficult for you? Was it ever a point when you were almost going to veto?
It's funny. All of those episodes, before they even finished writing the episodes, Roseanne would call and say, hey, we're thinking about doing an episode about this. How would you feel? Would you be uncomfortable? Would you be embarrassed? And so my thing about it was like the masturbation episode. She goes, well, you won't have to say it. We won't make you have to say it, but we're going to have this episode. Are you okay with that? Would you be okay as long as I don't make you really talk about it too much? And I said, oh, yeah, as long as it's funny. When you do a good comedy, hey, if there's a good joke at the end, there's a lot of things you do. The erection show where they talk about putting a book in front of it and all this stuff, those are great lines. The masturbation show, I think, turned out to be one of the best episodes we ever did. I mean, there's some classic lines in there, I heard you got caught playing with your instrument in band, not in band, stupid, what I mean?
So, the best one was like, well, he's been in there for, the best one was, well, he's been in there for an hour, so he's either really good at it or really bad at it.
Yeah, when Darlene turns to John and goes, oh, he's been in there for a couple hours, and, he's either really, really good at it or he's really, really bad at it.
Well, the funny thing is, it's a big episode for you, and you're not in it as much, considering. But, most of the talk is when you're off screen.
Yeah, I think that was done kind of to be polite to me, and I think, the funny part is I went to regular school on the days and weeks we weren't filming, and it would never fail. That episode was supposed to be on a week where I was going to be at school very little. And somehow the schedule would get changed, and it would be on the week that I was at school the whole week, every single day. And so, Tuesday night, all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is going to be, the episode where Darlene has this thing with David, and you turn on and you're like, oh, my God, it's the masturbation episode. I got to go back to school tomorrow.
How would you handle it? Would you kind of just go to school and own it, or would you just kind of hope that nobody else would mention it and you wouldn't?
Oh man, our show was so big you couldn't hide from it. You had to just show up and own it, and just kind of like, yes, I did that episode. It was funny, right? Yes, it was funny. Okay, well then good. So if you do good work, I think you can take pride in it, even if you're the butt of a lot of the jokes.
If you, when you mentioned you were going to a regular high school, how were you treated? Were you treated like a big deal, or were you just or was it like a big at first? You were just treated like another kid.
Elementary school. Lines too.
What was that?
Were you razzed a bit, or just like would they would quote like the lines back with you as well? Just to add to that.
Because, elementary school, I started school before the show, so a lot of the people just knew me as Michael. So all the way through elementary school, I was just me, and it was a day job. Then in middle school, I actually switched school districts, and then it was kind of more of a big deal because people only knew me from the show going into that. And high school, you can imagine, the first year of high school was a mix. You had people who loved the show and people who were very supportive, and you had people who loved to try and talk smack to you because, high school is high school. And then I had people who would try to bully me because they thought that, that would be a cool thing to be able to tell somebody. I think you learn to hold your ground.
I think it's one of these things that, I think I mentioned this on Twitter, that it's like I think the perfect counter is, it's like, well, why don't we talk about your hit show? Oh, I'm sorry.
See, I in some ways you always would love to say stuff like that, but I was always I never wanted to be boastful or ego-filled in my comeback. So normally it was either direct, or it was more kind of a thing where a lot of people I could just blow off, unless it escalated, in which case you just defend yourself and move on. It's not that big a deal. It comes with the territory. She was a very public and powerful individual, and at times polarizing for people. Some people loved her, and some people really didn't.
To go back to that episode one more time, I was just going to say is that is one of those things that when I watched it, and Neil's seen me watch TV, that I started laughing so hard that I almost passed out. When you said the part, it's like, who told you I was in band?
Right.
And I swear to God, I almost, I couldn't breathe.
There's a scene where John and I are in the garage, and we're talking about it, but not talking about it, and he goes, it's okay, everybody does it. And I have to turn to him and say, oh, okay, well, then how much do you do it? It's like, and he has to turn around and say, well, it's one of those things where nobody talks about it, but everybody does it, okay? And, that's one of those things where, those are some really good scenes. And when you read it, you're going, oh, this is going to kill. I mean, it's every comedian's dream to have a line like that where I'm not in band, stupid. That's going to be a home run.
I mean, yeah, because it killed me. And, it's funny talking about that scene with Dan in the garage. I ended up once having a conversation with my father almost exactly like that. And, mind you, my father was a man of the world, but he's like this, hey, boy, that's not wrong, right? And I was like, yes, I know. And then we both quickly left the room trying to hide our mutual shame.
Well, that's the thing. I think those are the conversations that happen in real life that you don't want to have, but you have to. So, you get to that point where you just, okay, we're going to have to talk about this. Now, how do I talk about this without getting too into it? And then it's, okay, we're good. We can move on.
Going to another episode, do you remember the episode when DJ stole the car?
Absolutely.
Because, there's this part where no, you can finish.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I assume you're talking about what I was compared to.
Yeah, when they was like this, look for, would that bother you any, or did you think it was funny yourself?
Oh, I thought that, it was funny because over the years they kind of teased me about the Eddie Munster thing. I had, really dark hair, thick dark hair, and, a widow's peak and all this stuff. So, I was kind of pale. So it was funny. It was kind of a running joke with us anyway. So it found its way into the show. It was pretty funny. But it's a great moment of TV when they go, what was the description of the guy? Looks like this, kind of looks like Eddie Munster, and everybody turns and looks at me.
Yeah, I remember that because they did this thing in the credits where they were filming it like it was cops, and and Roseanne's yelling like, "DJ, it's the cops!" And you jump off the roof.
Yeah.
And you did an episode of Seinfeld, right?
Yes.
How was that compared to working on Roseanne?
Just a different style. Again, great show. Everybody was, professional, ready to roll, ready to do their part. So, but we had something special. I think we were more fun-loving. We were more joking behind the scenes. They were a little more formal than we were. But again, I was only there for a short period of time.
Right, because it was because we just found that on we were just looking around on Wikipedia and IMDb. It says you did an episode of Hey Arnold. Is that true?
Yeah, I did a few voiceovers for them.
Okay, how was voice acting compared to? And it also said you did Little Rosie, because I remember that cartoon very well. Do you remember how was that experience compared to acting on camera?
It's a dream job, but it can be hard at times. I mean, that's one of those jobs. You could show up in your pajamas and do that job. It's like that's a dream job. You go to a little studio and you have your lines and you look at them and you go right into a mic, and it's a lot of fun. But there's a pressure there because there's nothing physical you can do with your lines. You can't sell a look or sell anything else. So you really have to. The inflection becomes really important, and I think the director becomes really important because they can kind of guide you and steer you towards what they want or what maybe somebody else did that you can react to, because a lot of times you're not with the other actor.
Is it hard to go to...
Well, I know it's kind of true with some actors because I know some of them will can't really transition when they try to do a voice on anything. Like it would be very wooden or just kind of flat or just have no direction whatsoever.
Yeah, it's hard at times because, especially if you don't know the people you're working with, or you don't get to hear them all the time, or sometimes you read with somebody else. If you're reading with somebody and they're real flat, and then it becomes, it's a real stress on you from one standpoint, but that's what you train for. That's, it's like anything. Some days are easier than others, and I love it. I would do more voiceover work if I could.
Okay, going back to about season 3, that was when Chuck Lorre was writing for the show. Do you remember interacting with him any?
I love Chuck. I still think his writing is fantastic. Chuck was one of those guys. He was such a, you could just tell. Certain guys come through and you just know they're going someplace.
One thing I noticed is when he was writing, because I could usually tell the episodes he was writing, because I noticed there would be a lot more blatant fat jokes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, Michael, we're about to hit streaming in a minute. That means the live portion is going to be over and it's going to be recording. I was just going to give you a heads up.
No problem.
Okay, but what I always liked about the show personally, because, ever since I was a little kid, I've been fat. Or it's like I can't remember a time. And one thing I always like, because I'll be the type of person watching, like, The Goonies, and this kid will be saying, there's ice cream in here, and I'll say, oh, stop it, you're making us all look bad.
Yeah, I love it.
But on
Roseanne started that.
Right, but they were actually, like, full-fledged people.
Yes, and the thing about it is Roseanne, having such a good sense of humor, she loves fat jokes. She loves, a good joke is a good joke, and if you can tease somebody, people tease each other. That's one of the ways that you kind of disarm each other or disarm things that you're insecure about, too.
It's never done in a mean fashion.
No, it was never done in a malicious, negative connotation. It was more of a playful or a teasing, It was done kind of like a family out of love.
Yeah, that's what I meant by it. It's just that was one of the funny things I noticed, because I enjoyed the Chuck Lorre episode. Like, he wrote this episode when Dan was thinking about a woman. Okay, hold on 1 second, because we're going to streaming in 5 seconds. nervous. I took some medicine because I was so nervous.
Yeah, I know which episode he's talking about, though.
Yeah, there was this episode when Dan was dreaming about another woman, and it worried Roseanne till she met her, and it was this heavy-set woman.
Yep.
And Roseanne saw her, she said, "Oh my God, she's cute!" And then when she went over and talked to her, and the woman's very hateful, and she said, "And she's got a personality."
Yes.
And that was one of those things that just cracked me up.
I think that we were very good about that.
Yeah, it was like excellent timing on the show.
Well, I think we had everybody seemed to have a good chemistry together.
Let me ask you about the final season, because, that's kind of the infamous weird season. What did you think of it at the time?
At the time, I guess having the insight of being there made it a little different. We had made plans as a show to do certain episodes, and the word kind of came down budget-wise that we weren't going to be able to do some of these things. Roseanne wanted to take the crew on a trip kind of as a thank you, and it just didn't work out. And so some of the episodes, we kind of brought the outside world to us. And then we also, John kind of had an open contract, and he was doing so many films. A lot of times we didn't know which days and weeks we were going to have him. And there were days where he'd show up to visit us, just to come by and say hi and see how everybody was doing. And the writers would crank out 4 or 5 scenes to put in 2 or 3 shows in an hour while he was hanging out. And then we would tape something with him and then try to fit those into episodes. So that makes it hard to kind of run a normal continuity. But also there were some somebody had their finger on the pulse of something, because, we take the train ride, and there's the Roseambo episode. And it's like it's like the Taliban is the group. Like, the group of terrorists is an actual name that comes up, 10 years later that nobody knew of.
The thing I remembered about that train episode was at the end of it when Mark beat up one of the terrorists, and I was losing my shit like I was watching a wrestling match.
It was awesome.
There was one episode in particular with you and John Goodman doing a scene where he's thinking about going back to California, and that's honestly one of my favorite scenes with DJ. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was. It's funny because that's kind of like. It was more of a serious scene than anything else. It's really kind of an awkward, Dad, are you staying? Dad, are you going? Kind of moment. And, we found ways to really have some really serious moments in the midst of our comedy.
Yeah, that was actually one of the episodes I was waiting for. Let me get back to something right here because I feel like I cut you off. Do you remember when you first met Glenn Quinn?
Oh, yes. Glenn was one of those guys who, when he walked in, everybody knew he was there in the best of ways. I mean, he's that guy, he's that, like, in a dark night, he's the shining star that everybody sees, and kind of brightens things up. He was just that kind of person.
Was he supposed to be a regular from the start, or was he just so good that he got promoted?
I think initially they were looking for a boyfriend for Becky, and the conflict was good, and they started out, I think he was going to be like a possible recurring, but they really hadn't fully stretched it out, and then he was just so amazing, and he and Lacey were so good together that you almost couldn't be without him. Kind of the same thing when Johnny Galecki came in as his little brother. Johnny was just so good. Initially it was just supposed to be this weird, little brother issue, and then it turned out to be David's got to stay because this is such a substantial actor.
I noticed that later on they would put David and DJ in a lot of scenes together, like the episode when DJ beat David up, and DJ said something, "Now I see why people beat me up. This is great."
Yeah. I think the worst one, because I know Johnny got a hard time for it, is the episode DJ calls him Poodle Healy.
Oh God, yeah, that's a tough thing that can stick.
Yeah, I mean, I had taken enough of those over the years that I knew when that line came out, I was like, oh, this one's going to follow you a little bit.
I remember that, because I remember there was a later episode where they said that, where David was telling Jackie, said, no, I would always want Darlie to be honest, even if she said your hair made you look like a poodle.
Yeah.
And he's like, yes.
That was his version of the Eddie Munster thing. It just kind of followed him.
Now, going back on the serious moments, you saying about the open contract about John Goodman, was that part of the reason why they had the whole heart attack in the second season finale?
Yeah, well, at the end of season 8, we didn't know if we were coming back. And that was a really hard time in general because we ended that year and everybody's contract was over. And so we didn't know if their show was going to get picked up, if they were going to work it out, if what it wasn't really people holding out for money. It was more how far does everybody want to go? And, when you do a show for that long, people start moving on and people start looking for other things. And a lot of times people don't want to get typecast and, management and those people start talking in people's ears and it becomes something where the show can't go forever. I mean, the end of that 8th season was devastating for me because I went home assuming we were going to do a 9th season, and I spent the whole summer worrying that we weren't going to come back and that I hadn't really told all these people how substantial they were in my life.
Yeah, I can remember. I remember when I watched that episode. It's like you're watching it, and I knew what was going to happen, but I kept hoping it was going to change somehow.
Yeah, you kind of got the feeling that this was going that way, and they did a good job of kind of foreshadowing it. And it was like you just didn't want it to happen, and that's kind of how it felt on set. Like you knew that we didn't know what the future was, and we didn't like the way that this was going.
Actually, that episode is still rough to watch. Like the last time we watched it, it's like, oh, that's terrible.
When Neil told what the episode was going to be, he tried to sneak out of the room, and I held him down.
It's like I'm not watching Dan die again.
Yes, and that's the thing. That's one of those episodes. It's still uncomfortable to watch. But again, I credit that to it must have been written well, otherwise it wouldn't have that impact.
Right.
I hope John Goodman told it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like it wouldn't have worked, if you didn't have so much invested in the characters.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, did you know what the series finale was going to be? That season 3 till the end was just going to be a story?
Nobody knew. As far as we had a different ending, but we never really knew what the other ending was, and it got sold. Somebody in the production office sold it, and so Roseanne rewrote the ending to what it is now, and literally when they taped that, they kicked everybody out. There were 3 people on stage, Roseanne, a director, and I think one person to kind of operate some of the equipment, and literally they locked off the cameras, they kicked all the crew out, they kicked all the actors out. The final show I had to watch to find out how it ended, which was a very awkward moment. It's the first time I ever had to watch to know what was going to happen on our show.
How did you feel about the ending when you first saw it?
It tied up loose ends, but raised new questions. I think, the storyline of, like, which daughter was with which boy and all that stuff was hard because I was so invested in kind of the way the show was. But I thought they did a good job of tying a lot of stuff together and kind of explaining some of it.
Okay.
Did you follow any of the critics at the time just to hear what people were thinking about the seasons or the episodes?
It's one of those things I've learned over the years you're not going to please everybody. And, I know that there's a lot of shows in season 9 that people don't like. But again, if you don't ever take any chances, especially in comedy, if you don't take chances, then if you're not touching that line or pushing the line, you're really not doing anything.
I can say, watching the episodes, I can't say that they're my favorite episodes, but I can appreciate the risk that was taken.
Well, I think that's it. And then I also think, if you look back, they're not unwatchable, and some people acted like it was, a crime, that we changed so much. But, over the course of 9 years, things change. Writers come in and out. You got to take some chances.
I think
was season 9 the one that had all the breaking the fourth wall jokes? I'm trying to remember.
There were some, yeah.
Okay, let me go back to something like a couple of years before. Do you remember when you first met Tom Arnold?
Vaguely, because he came in and came out. He did warm-up, which is like the guy who does almost stand-up comedy in front of the audience. So he kind of came in, came out, then he was hired to play Arnie. And I remember when he joined the show as Arnie.
Let me ask, because, I don't want to stir anything up, but, I'm just curious about this. The stories at the time were that there was a lot of fighting on set between Roseanne and Tom Arnold. Did you ever see any of that?
They had a, I don't think it's any secret that they had a very public, passionate, and heated relationship in every sense of the word. I think both good and bad, and I think they had a lot of times where they were really happy with each other, and then they had times where they weren't happy with each other. And I will say this, having just done the roast, over the years, I've been close to Roseanne for 24 years, so she's been a constant figure in my life. So when things went bad, it's kind of like when your parents split up in that sense, because for me, I was obviously closer to Roseanne. And I have to say, Tom came to the roast and did such a phenomenal job. I really respect what he did and was really impressed by how he went about what he did and the way he presented himself. I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, I heard about that. I haven't actually watched the roast. I've thought about watching it, but I tend to avoid those Comedy Central roasts in general just because they always come across as a little mean. Or a little too mean, but okay, no, you go on. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
But yeah, that's all I was going to say, But I kind of want to see this one, especially when I heard, about Tom Arnold being there, because Roseanne seemed like she was very adamant about Tom Arnold, because I remember on Twitter, she really blew up about somebody retweeting something Tom Arnold said to her.
Right.
So I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, let me put it to you this way. At 7:25, just before the show started to tape, he was not going to be there. And so when he came out, I was probably one of the most stunned people in the building. And then he came out and he did a great job. And I have to say, he turned to her and he talked about her going on the Tonight Show and how that was a seminal moment in her life. And he said that she was his Tonight Show. And that's a pretty big compliment. Even with all the stuff that's happened over the years, you have to give somebody credit when they step up and give somebody else credit like that and say something that kind in a public sense, especially after they've kind of been estranged for a while. It was something that earned some respect.
Yeah, it really surprised me because I remember one time when she was on Howard Stern and they called Tom Arnold, and it was like uncomfortable to watch. So when I heard that, it was like really surprising. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yes, part of my job was I did the most interviews of everybody on the show. I did a lot of the PR and stuff. So you end up doing a lot of these things, and you I was played those clips over and over and over again.
Okay, getting to another part you did that wasn't on Roseanne, you did an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. Did you get to talk to Chuck Norris much?
The funny part about that is, people can tease me all they want about that episode. I got to have a fight with Chuck Norris. I got to do a knife fight with Chuck Norris. On the list of things, I can check that off my bucket list. I can say I had that moment.
Yeah, that's badass.
It was pretty amazing.
Oh, you worry me, Blog Talk Radio. Well, those of you that were listening the other night, we were talking to Micheal Fishman, who starred on Roseanne as DJ Connor, and we were having a great discussion going, and suddenly we get cut off. No prompting from the British lady. Nothing. Michael, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
All right, no problem, man. You're always welcome. You were in the middle of telling us a story about doing a knife fight with Chuck Norris.
Oh, yeah. I was really lucky because working on Walker, Texas Ranger, I got to have a knife fight with Chuck Norris. And it was right kind of at the height of, all the Chuck Norris jokes. I had my brother, I raised my little brother, and he was in high school. And I just remember everything was a Chuck Norris joke back and forth. And I finally, at one point, just couldn't take any more Chuck Norris jokes after a 2-hour drive taking them to a wrestling tournament. And I turned to the kids and I said, hey, Chuck Norris had to tell me to slow down. And they all started laughing. And then finally, my brother just sat there totally quiet. And the one kid looks at him and goes, why are you looking at him? He goes, no, Chuck Norris did have to tell him to slow down. It's like, yes, be quiet. I got peace for a few hours.
Okay, so when you were doing the fight scene, how was choreography done?
It's interesting. The first time through, they said, okay, he's going to take this knife from you. Try to resist and try to defend yourself. And so I got all excited, and I'd taken some martial arts, and I was all pumped up, and he started disarming me, and we started kind of wrestling over the knife, and so we got done with and he won. But we got done with the scene, and they came up to me and go, okay, we're going to shoot that again, and it has to go quicker. So what we want you to do is, motion towards him with the knife and then just relax so he doesn't hurt you. And he proceeded to curl me up like a pretzel and take the knife from me.
Well, you know what I was realized after you told me about that?
Uh-oh, what?
You're one step removed from Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing thing. A friend of mine told me that, and it was really amazing to me. I mean, that's like one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, I mean, you could connect yourself to just about every action hero of the last 30 years.
I never really thought about it that way. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, because, Bruce Lee fought Bolo Young. Bolo Young fought Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I would love to do an action movie. That's that's a dream.
Okay, you were talking about doing the Roseanne roast. I remember at the time you said they scripted stuff for you, and you regretted going ahead with it. Can you tell me what type of jokes did they give you, or did you not like the jokes, or do you think it wasn't natural enough?
Well, 2 weeks leading up to the roast, they said, hey, we'd like you to come be there for the roast, and I said yes. And I said, do I need to write anything? Am I getting up on stage? And they said, absolutely not. We just want you to come have a good time. A week later, they called me back and said, hey, just a reminder. And I said, do I need to write anything? No, just come have a good time. 2 days later, they called to make sure I knew where I was going and to make sure I was going to show up at the right time. And I said, do I need to say anything? No, just show up, have a good time. And then literally about 8 o'clock the night before, about 22 hours before the show was going to be taped, they called and said, hey, we've decided that you're going to go up on stage and you're going to be with Lacey Goranson, who played the first Becky, and you guys are going to do a thing together. And I said, oh, my goodness, okay. I said, should I write something? And they said, no, we have a whole staff of writers, and we would prefer if you not write anything. And I'm like, okay. So then I waited, and I literally got kind of an outline of some of their ideas, maybe at noon, and then I got picked up at 3 o'clock, and my car was given the wrong address, so we went to the wrong place, so I got to rehearsal late. I got no rehearsal, and then they said, we're rewriting the whole thing. We'll give it to you before you go out, and don't worry, there'll be a monitor and what's the word I'm looking for when the words are on a screen? A teleprompter.
Teleprompter.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, no problem. I've done this before. And so I'm like, no big deal. And literally, I think I got the official script for it at about 7:20 for a 7:30 taping.
You mentioned that you had some of your ideals for your own jokes. Can you tell us what they were?
Well, I mean, normally you make fun of all the other the presenters up there, and so, I was just going to kind of play off of that and kind of tease some of the people on stage. And then, I have all these things with Roseanne over the years. They had written, like, one section of it is, you gave us 9 good years, and our thing was kind of talking about the things we learned from her in real life versus the things the character Roseanne taught us for Lacey and I. And, those jokes were decent. They just, I wanted to be more personal. And it was really interesting for me because, like, at the end it says, I had 9 good years with you. Well, in my case, I worked with Roseanne on the sitcom, but then I worked with her on her talk show, and I've worked with her on her kid music videos. I've worked with her on her reality show. So I've never really had a gap. In the last 24 years, I think the longest I've gone without seeing her and talking to her is maybe 2 months. So some parts of it didn't fit.
Okay, when you were working on the talk show, what were you doing on it?
I came in after the talk show had started. I came in. We were the first network show to integrate a chat room and a talk show with the talk show format. And so I was the cyber guy. I was live in a chat room taking questions from people and talking to the producers and trying to help do intros for sections of the show and segments, and then also trying to contribute, or every once in a while, if she got on a subject that the network was uncomfortable with, it was kind of my job to bring her back in a different direction.
Now, you say you did the chat, and that must have been hell. Must because there had been a flood, and there'd probably be a whole lot of trolls popping in. They were, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. It was an amazing thing to do, but it was a nightmare, because in one ear I had the producers and the staff from the show. In the other ear I had a mic for stuff going on the computer side, and then I'm reading a chat room and trying to listen to her, and right about the time somebody says something really awful, and you're like, oh my God, I got to get this person out of the chat room, she'd turn to me and say, what do you think about that, Michael? And I'd be like, you have that brain freeze because 4 people are talking to you in your ear.
Going back to the roast for a minute, well, it just made me think of it. We talked a little bit about Lacey Gordonson and Sarah Gilbert. How was your relationship with Sarah Chalk?
I love Sarah Chalk. Sarah Chalk she is literally one of the nicest people on the planet. Besides being a very talented actress, she came in and, coming into a situation where everybody else kind of was established on a show, and we weren't reluctant to welcome her. I think we all welcomed her, but it's odd, we had a connection with Lacey, and here's somebody else coming in to play that character, and I don't think anybody really knew what to expect, and Sarah Chalk was so wonderful, she just fit in from day one.
Well, I guess it would be a situation like, even if you're very welcoming, it's still going to be kind of a difficult transition.
Yeah, and that a lot of fans and people outside the show were kind of uncomfortable with the idea. So I that this person, when she comes and she's super nice, you're like, oh no, you poor thing, because you're going to take a little of abuse because people love Lacey.
This is embarrassing, but I swear to God, it took me like 3 episodes to realize that was a new Becky.
I think they did a really good job, and at least we made jokes of it and made light of it and kind of made it an easy transition.
Yeah, like the ending that did the Petty Duke intro.
Yes.
And what was it they said on the Disney World episode? It's like, tonight's a part of Becky would be played by.
Yeah. And then Roseanne said something like, aren't you glad you showed up this week?
Yes, aren't you glad you're here this week? And, and we did all the jokes about the 2 Darrens from Bewitched and things like that. So I think we made light of it in a good way. There's the episode we did, kind of like the only clip episode that we did and John played me as an adult, played TJ. And he goes, They said she's the same, but she's not the same. Which I thought was also pretty funny.
Were you on the set that day when he was filming that scene?
Oh yeah. See, that clip show came about totally unexpected. Roseanne was pregnant with her youngest child, and she got put on bed rest like on Tuesday, and we had to shoot a show on Friday. So the script we had for Monday and Tuesday went right out the window. So Wednesday we came in and they said, okay, it was John and I and Lori, and Lori's daughter Zoe, who actually plays Jackie as a young kid. And there was a day where we kind of stood around and said, what are we going to do? And then there was Thursday, all of a sudden there was the beginnings of a script, and then Friday I showed up and, hey, guess what? You're dressing in drag and playing Roseanne as a little kid, and we're doing kind of a look back. So there wasn't a whole lot of, there wasn't even time to process what was going on. It was just time to jump in and do.
Was it fun getting to imitate Roseanne on camera?
It's funny. It was fun, but it's kind of nerve-wracking because this is somebody, number one, I had a close relationship, but number two, she's coming back the next week. So, you hope that you do her justice and that she's okay with it. But, she did, I was on the Tonight Show one time with her because I think it was NBC had done like an unauthorized autobiography and like a film.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to make fun of the head of NBC and she wanted me to do a bad impersonation of her, and she played it on the Tonight Show, which is probably why I've never worked for NBC going forward.
Joe, that reminds me, the Gilligan's Island episode?
Oh, yes.
Okay, the thing that cracks me up is that they're doing all the things from Gilligan's Island, then they pan back and you see DJ dressed like a headhunter.
Yes. I love that. I would say the thing that I don't think people who didn't watch the show are aware of is how many different characters I got to play. I did so many credit tags for about a year and a half. I did almost every credit tag, and I got to hit on Sharon Stone, and I got to be Tattoo talking about the plane, and I got to do all these really bizarre, different. I got to be Moses and break the 10 Commandments. So it seemed like every week, put on a beard, put on some facial hair, get dressed in a ridiculous outfit, and go make somebody laugh.
Or like the Halloween episode where you just had the little voiceover going, "Welcome to the Tunnel of Terror."
Oh, I loved Halloween. Can I tell you, Halloween has always been one of my favorite holidays. And when we first tried to do Halloween, the network went ballistic. I mean, that's a pagan holiday. Nobody does Halloween. Halloween is not an acceptable thing to do.
Really?
Yeah, I'm telling you, if you look back in television history, if you look before us, not a lot of people did Halloween. Halloween almost didn't exist as far as television was concerned.
This became a mainstay for everything. Like, about a year later, they just had The Simpsons, and even, like, Drexel's Class did an episode.
Yeah,
thinking about it, I can't remember. I think, I really can't think of another Halloween episode.
It's just basically the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a big deal because, and again, that's one of those ones that Roseanne really fought for. And she said, no, I love this holiday, and it's going to be fun. And they were really alarmed, and every year, we would hold our tongues because they'd plan all these costumes, and half the time nobody would want us to wear, like the second year, I think is the one where Lisi is the flight attendant who, like, went down in flames, and her whole face is, like, fried on one side, and, I mean, we had some crazy outfits. There's the year that DJ wants to be a witch, and Dan does not want to have any part of that, and, he tries to talk me into it being a warlock. Which I thought,
I remember that.
That's a pretty normal thing, I think, to have happen as far as, like, being uncomfortable if your child chose that. And then being the one year Roseanne wanted me to be Alfalfa, and I wanted to be the Terminator, and that turned into the Alfalfa-nator.
That was bad.
Yes, now I remember it. Which year was it that they did It's a Wonderful Life with Halloween and had, like, the Ghost of Christmas Past that was a candy corn?
Yes. And I'm telling you, one of the Halloweens that nobody ever talks about is there's an episode where Roseanne dresses as a guy, where she has the beard and she goes and uses the men's room.
Oh, yeah, now I remember.
And she tries to,
and this trucker's going to fight her.
Yes. There's some great, looking back, I think I watched the show again now, and I think I'm most proud that I think it holds up, and I think the jokes are really good. The writing's really good, and I'm really proud of it.
I think it holds up I think it holds up just as well today, just because, a lot of the things they talked about it's more universal themes.
Yeah.
And it never really gets stated in necessarily the references show. I guess you could add a cell phone or two, but I can't think of it, but it's basically, you can understand it. I was going to ask you, no, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
When you had to do that, when DJ dressed like a witch, was that uncomfortable for you? Because you were still pretty young.
It wasn't, but at that point I had to dress in drag for things for the show, and I guess, growing up in this business, and I think people were very careful about how they made me do these things. It wasn't really like I had to. It was, look, this is what we're thinking, and it would be funny. And, for me, I was always aware of, I was aware of Milton Berle and all the stories of him and how he dressed in drag for some of his characters, and Roseanne was a big fan of his, and so there were always other great comedians from the past. So I think as a kid you just want to be mentioned in the same sentence, let alone be a part of something like that.
Okay, one episode I meant to ask you about the other night was, do you remember the episode when DJ started going to church and it was like a big secret thing?
I think that was one of the most honest episodes we did, and I think it was lost among a lot of people, especially non-fans. It was a great episode because there's a great scene where I think a lot of people can relate, where he asks, well, what are we? And they say, well, we're kind of this, kind of that, but we're not practicing.
That's what I thought of, because I remember growing up, my mother was somewhat religious, and my family, we believed in God, but we never really went to church or anything. And I thought that really captured the way most people are.
Yeah, I think that's the way a lot of people are. I grew up in a fairly religious household, but a mixed household, because my dad was Jewish and my mom was Christian, so they had very, very different views. And so it was really interesting for me being on the show. Again, my character kind of was a gateway to a topic that I don't know how we would have discussed any other way.
There was a funny scene in that episode when they're doing a discussion at the dinner table and they're trying to welcome him into doing it. And Darlene wanted David to get a nose piercing, and he's like, well, DJ, if you think the body's a temple, I won't get the nose piercing. He's like, no, I think that's okay, but I think you two should stop having sex.
Yeah. Again, God, that's one of those lines when you're reading through the script on Monday and you go, a lot of times those didn't make it till Wednesday or Thursday, and you just see this. You see a line like that, and you're like, oh yes, I got a good one.
How did you like working with Martin Mull?
Martin was amazing. People don't realize how good he is, from Fernwood Tonight and all those things, and we had Willard too, and they were amazing. And Martin used to be a place kicker. He used to kick field goals. He was like an emergency guy. So also away from on camera, he used to kick me balls the length of a sound stage and just bomb these things. And it was amazing, because it was like, this guy can do everything. He can come in here, he can be funny, he can be serious, he can go outside and play football and be one of the guys, and he's an artist. He does paintings and things, and he's amazing.
I remember that. I remember watching Fernwood Tonight because I remember they showed on Nick at Night for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I saw him, and I remember seeing him on Roseanne. I was like, hey, it's a guy from Fernwood Tonight. And for some reason, because I'm a dumb kid that believes everything TV tells me, I thought Fernwood Tonight really was some old talk show.
You know what? I think that show is underrated. I don't think people realize how good that show was.
It really played it to, it always played it straight relatively, because it tried to play it as true to like a local access show would.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me see, lost my train of thought here. What was I going to say? Damn it, I hate when that happens.
Is Roseanne still on Nick at Night right now? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's on TV Land.
Oh, okay, because I think at this point Nick at Night's just basically just the George Lopez show.
Okay, let me ask you this, if you don't mind. Did you ever get residuals from the show?
You do get residuals, but it's based on what you make initially, and it's based on, like in my case, I was a kid, so I was the low guy on the totem pole, and each episode is its own episode, and so every time that individual episode is on, its value goes down. So residuals aren't the end-all be-all that people make them out to be. Now, if you own a percentage of the show, it's a much bigger thing. And now, with DVDs and streaming and things like that, there's a lot more revenue. But in our day, nobody had a DVD deal. So there was no, like, we don't make things off the DVDs or, I don't make anything from the show streaming all over the Internet.
Okay, so do you ever, from the, as far as residuals go, do you ever receive, like, mystery checks, like, like not even expecting it, or do they come in pretty steadily?
You know what, it's all hit or miss. There's no consistent thing. Somewhere, some system is keeping track of when a show is on, and then they print out a check, and it's really funny because, especially now, I get checks that are, they have raised letter and multicolored ink and all this stuff, and then I get a check for a couple dollars. It's a very good, humbling experience to walk into a bank with a stack of checks, and like the bank teller kind of looks at you and goes, "Oh wow," and you hand them the stack, and the person asks you how you're doing today, and they're all friendly, and then they look and like the grand total is like $47, and they look up at you like, "You jerk! I have to scan every one of these checks. Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, it's like one of those things. Yeah, I'm not happy with it either.
Well, no, I will never complain because there aren't too many things in this world you can get paid for something you already did. So every dollar I'm thankful for. It's provided me with enough of an extra income to kind of balance being able to stay in this and being able to pursue this without going crazy. I'm able to kind of, put them away, and then, every once in a while I can pay an electric bill with them, or I can, I do little things with them. It's not like I wish I lived in a huge mansion someplace as much as people think.
Yeah, well, it's kind of this perception, and it's hard to get over where you kind of have this ideal that anybody on TV, no matter where it is, that they have to be a millionaire.
Well, I think we've propagated that idea, and I think a lot of even the reality shows at times have done that. But people have to remember, if you have an agent, which is 10% from the gross, and then if you have a manager like I did, that's 15% on top of that, so that's 25% coming right out of the check. Then they take taxes right away, and then all of that is not including the taxes or anything else. You're taxed on the gross, not what you take home. So it all adds up pretty quickly.
Right. You did Roseanne's reality show recently. How was that? Was that show scripted at all?
It wasn't really scripted. There were bits and pieces, I think, that they kind of talked about or they would happen, and then they would have to have you kind of redo things. But she was pretty authentic on that show. I mean, she didn't really hold a lot back. There was a lot of really good stuff that didn't make it on the air that I wish had. I only did, technically, officially I did 2 episodes, but I was there for the taping of 4 episodes and was there and was a part of them. They just thought it was hard to explain me being out there that long, so I was cut out of them.
So it wasn't exactly like a reality show where they're trying to make their own story and they just kind of edit everything to fit with it.
Yeah, and so they did a lot of editing, and it was interesting because anytime you can sit down, and they had a lot of the interviews, almost confessional style stuff, and so that stuff was pretty interesting. It was interesting to watch her son really get involved.
What type of relationship have you had with her over the years? Is it maternal or is it what?
It's funny. I always had a maternal relationship with her. Really early on, she really took a personal interest in me, and in some ways I think I almost got the best of her as a mom because she was there when I really needed her. And I know that sounds strange to people, but she was always really involved when I got married and my wife got pregnant. She was one of the first people I talked to, and she took me out to lunch and said, what are your plans? What are you going to do? Make sure you finish school. Make sure let's talk about where you're going. Are you happy? Is everything lining up the way you want? So she didn't have to do those things. There were periods of my life, there are a lot of times I haven't worked for her where we see each other. My kids kind of look at her as a crazy extra grandmother. And so it's funny when they hear, when she did when she was doing stand-up in Vegas for about probably 2 years, her ads would come on the radio, and they'd go, Roseanne's on the radio telling people to come to Vegas. This is weird. And you're like, yeah, she's working. Okay.
Did we have to go to Vegas to see her too? No.
Well, my kids go, oh, we need to go to Vegas, and I'm like, no, we're not. We're not going to go watch her show in Vegas. Yeah, but she's funny, and I'm like, it's not a show geared for you.
I understand that because kids, they don't seem to understand, so they'll want to just get you to go because they think it's natural.
Yeah, and they're like, well, I haven't really been to Vegas. What do they, I hear it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of lights, and I hear there's shows, and I'm like, not shows for you, It's like, this is not exactly what you're envisioning.
I was thinking about an episode, I think it was the Super Nintendo episode, and DJ was mad at Roseanne about something, and she said, well, where's my kiss? And DJ just looked at her like, come and get it.
Yeah.
And she just looks at it and says, and he's my favorite.
I think in some ways, I always kind of filled that role. I think we had a special bond, and I think it transferred over to on-screen stuff, and it's really carried through. I mean, all the years I'm trying to pay her back over the years. At some point, I'm going to be able to be in a position to do something really, really nice for her.
All right, Michael, we're about to go into streaming in about 25 seconds.
Okay.
I just didn't want you to be called in mid-sentence or anything. So when you were a kid and you got the Super Nintendo, were you a big gamer at the time?
I was a huge gamer. I'm still a huge gamer. Unfortunately, I have to work more now than I wish I did because I love video games. I'm completely addicted. We got a Super Nintendo at work, and I had more video games at work than I did at home.
My question is, were they sponsors at the time, or is that just kind of written in?
No, and it's funny. In those days, you couldn't really have companies sponsor you like that. In those days, even like drinks and sodas and beer, you had to do what they call Greeking, which is you had to change the letters so that they were generic. Now,
is that the Hollywood term for it?
Yeah, Greeking. It's what the prop and set dressers do. They change the names of everything so that it's a generic name. And now you can have name brand stuff on everything. It's amazing.
What were some of your favorite games when you were a kid?
I was a big Mario, Zelda. I really liked. I played Sega Genesis too. There were some really neat games. Sonic was good in the beginning, but I liked more like fighting games. And then Altered Beast was cool because it came with the Genesis. I always thought that was a cool idea where you could turn into like a werewolf or things like that. And then Final Fantasy. Like I remember on the Super Nintendo, Final Fantasy, I think it was like 3 or 7.
Well, it's supposed to be 6, but it's called 3 over here.
Yeah, and I love those games. I mean, I was addicted.
Well, Well, I remember Dustin Diamond in his book talked about that's what he would spend a lot of his checks with, is basically getting like all the big game systems and everything.
Yeah, it's funny. My parents wouldn't let me do that. I had to really save up, and including, I would talk Roseanne into buying me video games. And then the thing that, as I got older, that worked out really well was we got a Super Nintendo on the show, so there were games there, things like Mario Kart, Rock and Roll Racing was a cool game. And then what I would do is I would borrow or trade or, negotiate with some of the crew guys who also played video games and take stuff home.
We've been playing. We were just talking about video games because this show kind of covers everything. So we've had a couple episodes where we just talk about video games. Like on Friday, we had a Mega Man show.
I love Mega Man.
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons we were talking about it, and I know that's what Neil wanted to talk about because Neil loves that episode with Super Nintendo.
Oh man,
well, it just
Mega
kind
Man
of speaks because that's how I lived through it. It's kind of like honey, we need to have blow out the birthday candles in a minute.
Yep. Yeah. You know what's funny about that is I still have I have an original Nintendo and a Super Nintendo still.
Well, your Nintendo still works? That's surprising.
It does. It's funny. I got one and it wasn't working, and then I got a refurbished one off of eBay, and it works great.
You said you play games now. Do your kids play with you?
Yes, but my kid doesn't play that often. He only plays on the weekends, and my son kicks my ass all the time, which is really embarrassing as an adult. I have the mental advantage, but man, they're so fast at things. Like Modern Warfare, this guy, I can't even keep up sometimes. He knows where secret spots are and what you can shoot through, and it's like, all right, where did you learn this? Oh, at school. I'm like, how do you know the map without even playing?
It's funny. I play games with my nephews, and it gets to the point that they expect me to play for them. And at one point, it was like this. I feel like I died and went to hell was having an ironic punishment.
Yeah,
because they make me play a video game, and it's like, can't I just go read or something?
Well, it's funny. I'm ultra competitive. People don't really know that about me. I am such a competitor, and so we play a lot of sports games, and then I don't like the way people play online for most of the shooter games. I want to be strategic. I want to be in a group. I'm gonna sound like such a nerd, but I used to be in a clan for Rainbow Six Siege.
Oh, LAN parties.
Yeah, and we used to compete, and we had a group that we used to do clan battles and all these things. It was me, two twins from Texas that I never met in person, a guy from Vegas, my wife and I, and my brother.
Oh, okay. Your brother, was that your brother in the 50s episode of Roseanne?
Yes.
Because I was thinking they needed to find. I remember watching that episode recently, and I was thinking, man, they need to find a way to keep that kid around.
Yeah, that was my little brother. He's 9 years younger than me.
Do you know how that episode came about? Because that was just such a bizarre episode, even for Roseanne, which often had bizarre episodes.
It came out of nowhere, and I just remember being mortified. Probably that was the hardest episode of all the episodes we shot. It was probably the hardest episode for me because I have to sing towards the end of that episode, and I can't sing. I cannot carry a tune. If you forget a bucket, I need a backhoe and a dump truck and a few other things and a choir to back me up so that you can't hear my voice, and I still can't carry a tune. So it was very nerve-wracking.
How did they instruct you to do it? Did they tell you to try to sing good, or were they like it doesn't matter?
No, nobody sets out to do it badly. So I think, but when you're not good at it, when something's not your strength. So it was kind of like just play along and look like you're doing a good job, even if you're not.
I was going to mention something. I remember what I meant to say on Monday because, again, honestly thinking about this, you had a lot of the funniest moments on the series, and I was thinking about the erection episode when Roseanne thinks Dan botched it.
Yes.
So she gets him on the couch, and she's telling him a story, and it turns out to be about very own.
Yep. I love that.
Oh, no. Do you remember you weren't in this thing, but do you remember what they did in the credits where Roseanne was trying to ask them what was an acceptable terminology?
Oh, for the censor.
Yeah, where they were just going. It's like
pitching a trouser tint, or all these different terms she came up with. And the funny thing is, that was our real censor from ABC.
Yeah, I was about to ask, he wasn't an actor, or did they actually just get the guy?
No, it took them forever. And what we used to do is, he's a really tall guy. He's like almost 7 feet tall, and he used to sit up above the audience. And every so often, especially if Roseanne would forget a line, she would say something that she knew was inappropriate, and you would hear him like get up and like stumble and then come down the stairs. You could hear him come all the way around coming to the set, and about the time he ran up there completely out of breath, she turns to him, she goes, "Neil, it's okay. I'm not really going to say that. I just want to see if you were awake."
Okay, I think we're about to be cut off, but before you go, I was going to ask you, what's your favorite episode?
Oh, I have so many. It's so hard to pick one. I kind of pick a few per season. The Halloweens are fantastic. There's a great one towards the very beginning of the show. I think it's something Lanes, where they go to the bowling alley, and Becky has the guy that she likes, and they make fun of her before they leave, and it's just such a classic, parents teasing kids kind of moment. The erection episode worked out pretty funny. The masturbation episode worked out pretty funny. There's so many good moments over the course of the show, it would be impossible to pick one.
I thought of another episode I wanted to ask you about, the tornado episode. They did this scene where DJ went over to the window and the glass exploded.
Yeah, I think that's the one time the crew was more nervous than I was, because they had to throw this thing through the window, and I had to get out of the way in time, and I almost didn't once, and I think all the guys on set were petrified, because pretty scary moment, when you're trying to choreograph that and make it look real.
And it's probably one of those things, you're a little kid, so you're not really aware of the danger, while as an adult, you're probably, it's like as an adult, it's easier to put yourself in danger than see a child in danger.
Well, that was it, and I don't think I was ever really in danger, per se, but they felt like I was in danger, so it was...
Yeah, it's real scary.
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking.
Well, what was the thing that they threw made out of? I figured they had, like, sugar glass, but what do they fling out of? It was like balsa wood or, like, foam? It
was sugar glass, so that part was okay, but that was a 4x4 with a mailbox on it. It was a real
a natural mailbox.
Yeah, so it's like, uh-oh.
They didn't make it out of plastic or anything. It's like, awkward, yes.
No, because they wanted to break the window and break the wood slotting and the molding of the window, so it looked good. It all worked out okay.
Was that shot one of those things that's done at the end of the day?
It's funny. It wasn't. It was kind of shot in the middle of the day, and we kind of, I don't know. I probably should have been at the end of the day, but it was just, I think everybody was just confident in it, and then as it got time to do it, everybody got cold feet. Like, this could work out bad. Maybe we should rethink this.
Okay, well, Michael, I want to thank you again for talking to us, because me and Neil, we both really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's no problem. You ever want to come back to talk Mega Man or something, you're always welcome.
Oh, I love it. I'm a closet nerd, so people don't realize how much I love video games.
Yeah, it's like we've done a couple of video game episodes. Actually, talking about the Mega Man episode, we thought it was going to be a long cuss fight over our opinion on Mega Man 3.
Now, who are the bad guys in Mega Man 3? I'm trying to remember.
Shadow Man, Snake Man, Fork Man, Top Man.
I don't like the Shadow Man. That guy was a pain in the...
Oh, we're not starting this again. We're cutting this off.
Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to bring up bad.
No. It's just a joke. We only got like 5 minutes. I'm afraid we're going to keep going for like another 10.
No problem.
Yeah, because it'll basically be like this. Blank you, Dill. Well, blank you, Victor.
That's part about video games.
Yeah, we finally came to a consensus on it, so it's a relatively safe issue now.
Okay.
All right, man, but once again, thanks a ton. You really turned out to be an awesome dude.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You know, man, if you ever want to come back on or anything, just let me know.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right, man, you have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
All right,
bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.